Hello everyone and welcome to CareersTalk. I'm Suresh Sharma, an Agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we are going to discuss Scrum Master questions asked at IBM, shared by one of our WhatsApp group member. And to help us with the answers, we have invited Anvita Prabhu. Friends, before we begin, if you are new here, please subscribe to our channel. We have tons of valuable content for you. And if you find this session informative, please hit that like button. So without further delay, let's get started. Let's dive in. Welcome, Anvita. Over to you, Anvita.
Hi, Sunand. Thank you for giving me this opportunity once again. And it's a great honor, I would say, to be a part of your show. This Careers Talk, I think, have helped multiple people to come up with best possible answers as a Scrum Master. And I hope the previous video, whichever was recorded, I just
Yeah,
hope
thank
that
you.
it had helped some of the aspiring Scrum Master. And even today, I would be as explanatory as possible so that, it would help multiple people to come up with best possible answers. So I just hope that I would do best in this particular interview. Thank you once again, Sunan.
Wonderful, Anvita. So
Yeah,
if you allow, shall we start?
sure, sure.
Okay, so the very first question is that your team frequently skip a retrospective. They claim that they don't find value in that retrospective. So how do you manage these kind of situation as a Scrum Master?
Yeah, so this could be one of the scenarios which in real time we face this particular situation, wherein the development team, as they are quite into technical aspects, they might not feel these events as that important. It could be because of multiple reasons, right? First of all, one of the reasons could be that they are quite bored with the same format what you're using, right? Let's say the team has worked upon this particular project for across, like, multiple years altogether, and they see the same format, what you're following, what went well, what didn't go well, what are the action items, and they're quite bored with the same task, same format. I feel this is a normal human tendency, right? So you need to bring about changes in this format also, as a Scrum Master, wherein like one of our team, we had, like, as I mentioned, the pre-COVID, we had face-to-face conversation wherein I would write down in the whiteboard and then I would jot down and come up with the best possible answers there. But now, post COVID, I think, most of the organizations are following with the virtual context. So here we use Azure board, and yeah, we need to have some of the changes, I would say. That is one of the reason. And other reason would be that, let's say, they put forth their points. They would say that, yeah, these are the concerns what we are facing, and we as a Scrum Master are not taking up any action on the action items whatever is listed down, right? They don't see progress. So in this case, what happens is they just letting you know what is the problem, but you're not doing anything about it. So you're not showing any progress across the iteration, across the sprints. So they find it like useless, or not so valuable to come up with any of the suggestions or any of the inputs from their end. So that could be one of the reasons. So it's very important as a Scrum Master to ensure that whatever the action items that are listed down, you assign some of the owner for that particular thing. It could be that the team has to take the ownership, or it could be that the management has to take up the ownership, right? For example, in our organization, we have hardware dependency, as I mentioned. So what happens is, here as a team we can't do anything because they are totally a different vendor altogether. So management has to take up this ownership. So we need to assign the owners for each of the action items, and we need to show the progress. So what happens with this is that it builds the trust between the Scrum Master and the team, as well as the team will have that, you know uh, uh, they'll be heard. They'll feel that, yes, we are heard. Our problems are being heard. So this is one of the this could be one of the reason. And the third reason would be that, retrospective is sometimes misunderstood as a forum where you can blame each other, right? So this can also happen. What didn't go well, you'll point out with the person's name that this person is not giving me so and so the and you make a generic statement, like, the code review is not done, there is gap in the communication. So it's a very generic word and you're not explaining in detail. So in this case, what happens is it might demotivate the other person, right? Let's say I'm from QA team, and as for the developer, I'm just stating that the bills are not given on time. So the developer will in turn tell me that this is first time which is happening, right? Why do you state it like that? Just specify that in this iteration. Yes, we agree, but we have provided this on time before, right? So that is one of the things. This becomes a blame game sort of thing. That should not happen. So as a scrum master, we need to educate the team members onto what is the intent of retrospective, and we need to always remind the team, I would say, even though they know all the events, what are their agenda, what is the agenda, what we are intended to do. Even though this is known, you need to remind the team again and again. This is the area of improvement. You can consider it in a proactive way, right? And the other aspect I would say is that retrospective, it so happened that the team argues over the retrospective. This can also happen, like they don't they disagree with the point and they keep arguing over the in the retro. And because of this, slowly you will see that team members are not attending the retro from the next iteration onwards, right? So this is with respect to the team bonding what you have, right? You need to, as a scrum master, you need to build that trust within the team, and you need to conduct some team building activity as well. Maybe bi-weekly, or maybe once in two iterations, once in two sprints also it works. If not every iterations or every sprints, it's not necessary, but you can conduct this team building activities as such. So I think with all these inputs, I think they would find it little interesting, and they would come up with a proactive way of participating in the retrospective meetings.
Great, Anvita, wonderful.
Thank you.
Sometimes in our organization, we used to do retrospective or retrospective.
Okay.
So it's again a great idea for
Okay.
someone who is already spending a lot of time. So we can do a retrospective or retrospective as well, like just to understand the root cause. Anyway, so great answer. Thank you. You have
Yeah.
covered most of the point, all of the point. Great. So let's move on. Let's say during your daily scrum calls, team members, keep on discussing some off-topic issues and things like that, and that will cause your meeting to exceed the time box, right? So how do you ensure that the team will stick to the purpose of daily scrum? And especially, I guess you can see these kind of things when your team is pretty new. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anvita?
So first thing is that as a scrum master, this daily scrum is basically a 15 minutes time box event. And we need to first, if let's say the team is new to scrum, and the new project is being set up, right? In this case, as a scrum master, you need to educate the team onto what is the intent of daily scrum. That is what we have done yesterday and what we are planning to do today, and what are the impediments you have. When we say impediments, it could be any of the blockers or any of the issues what we see in this particular, in completing the iteration events, or let's say all the stories, right? We need to educate the team first of all. And once we educate the team, what happens is now they know the context, right? It can happen. I say that in some of the scrum teams, it so happened that the team tend to, when it comes to the third part, that is, discussing on the impediments, they tend to discuss more on the technical aspects, and they go into the code level and they start explaining each other, and they dig around those things, right? So as a scrum master, what we have to do is that we need to always keep this empathy in mind. And at the same time, you cannot just cut straight forward, say that okay, let's stop this, let's consider this as offline discussion. No, we need to politely inform the team that yes, team, this is going off the topic, so let's have it into parking lot, or let's consider this as offline discussion, right? And it can, so this is one of the reason wherein they will discuss on the technical aspects. And the second reason is that what we have seen in our team also, they tend to argue over the topics. This you can consider it as a conflict, but sometimes behavioral aspects also comes into picture, wherein the team member raises their voice and they keep telling that I've already informed you, why are you again asking me this, that, and all. So I think this is one of the thing, wherein the in conversation might drag more than 15 minutes. And in this case, as a scrum master, we need to always handle these conflicts with in a separate forum, I would say, not in front of the entire team members. So this will demotivate the team. So this is one of the another reason, I would say. And the third reason would be that in our team, it so happened that some of the architects and all, they don't attend the daily scrum, so it leads to a problem for other team members. They will question me, and they will we will have some sort of discussions on to why you are forcing us to join daily scrum and not them. So all these things, these discussions, I would say, the off topic discussions, as a scrum master, you need to handle it offline mostly, in a polite way, keeping empathy in mind. You need to tell the team that, yes, team, we are going off the topic, so we need to consider this as an offline topic and we need to handle it accordingly. So I have iterated the two different situations. One is on the technical aspect, wherein the team can coordinate with each other after the daily scrum and go about, like, in our project, there's one of the developer who is from on site, right? So who is a senior most employee. So the team would rely on him to get some information, and this person tend to over explain in the daily scrum. He is totally involved in the technical aspect that he'll continuously keep explaining. Then I had to, as a scrum master, I have to stop him politely, and I would keep a different session for him altogether, wherein the other team members, whoever has some any concerns, he's basically a domain expert. So people who have some doubts related to their code, and junior most employees can have a discussion with him. I keep a 1 hour meeting with him, so in this way they can discuss further. And yeah, that's another aspect which I mentioned is conflicts, like, the argument, what happens within the team. So this definitely has to be considered separately, in a different way altogether, where how you handle conflicts, right? So these are the two scenarios, I would say, where it would exceed more than 15 minutes.
Okay, wonderful, Anvita. Thank you. I would suggest like maybe a timekeeper will going to help. Like normally we assign a team member as a
Okay.
timekeeper, and we give, let's say, some kind of stress ball or something, and after every 2 minutes
Okay.
they have to pass that ball to other person.
Okay.
The person who's having a ball can only speak, not anyone else. Things like that. And we
Okay.
can also remind our team that the purpose of daily scrum is to be like quick focus meeting, within a 15 minutes, just to align the progress, identify any kind of challenges, and it's not going to meant for a detailed discussion or a problem solving.
Exactly.
So that's
Yeah.
something which we have to keep on telling our team members. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next question, which is on a product owner. So let's say your product owner is continuously adding more user stories, more work to the ongoing sprint without discussing with your team members. So they are feeling overburdened and overloaded with the work. So what you are going to do about this thing, and how you are going to address this particular problem?
Yeah. First of all, this can also be a realistic scenario in some of the organizations, wherein, let's say the feature is new, or let's say the project is new. You have a lot many user stories coming in, and as a result, this can happen. But we need to have an open conversation with the product owner and understand what is the intent and what is it stopping the product owner to discuss with the team member, and then have a collaborative way of discussing and reprioritizing things. That is one thing. And second aspect is that, let's say, okay, fine, these user stories are priorities. So we need to always understand that how we can deprioritize the other aspects within the particular iteration, right? Let's say these are priorities and this has been discussed with the stakeholder and we need to deliver at any cost within the particular sprint. So in that case, we need to deprioritize other aspects within the sprint so that the team is not overburdened. And third aspect is that we need to keep some buffer, like the capacity. We need to have some free capacity is the other aspect. Like even though we log 8 hours in our timesheet, it's not that 8 hours you keep it for each of the employees in your capacity planning, right? So you need to keep some buffer, like 20%, we call it as. So 20% buffer if you keep, let's say for the meetings, or let's say for the tea breaks or lunch breaks we have, right? So multiple breaks associated and unexpected meetings, ad hoc meetings would be added to the employees. So we need to keep 20% buffer. So in this case, let's say the items or the user stories, whatever is being added, forms the priority. At the same time, the user stories which are already there in your iteration or sprint is also a priority. In this case, you still have that capacity, right? 20% buffer, wherein you can utilize so that the team is again not overburdened. And you need to manage accordingly the timing also, how the team can cooperate with the product owner and come up with the best possible solution. And the other thing is that there should be a proper collaboration between the product owner and the team member, and we need to inform this to the product owner as well, like so that reprioritization or the backlog refinements is all done appropriately, so that we know what is on our priority list and entire team knows, right? That could be one more aspect. And we need to also keep stakeholder in regular we need to update the stakeholder regularly onto what is coming in our iteration, and we need to showcase the roadmap to the stakeholder as well. Let's say in your review or let's say in like in our organization, every week we have connect with the stakeholders. So accordingly you can set up some meetings, and you can weekly or bi-weekly you can update the stakeholders as well, so as to what is being happening and what are the important aspects what can be taken within the particular iteration. So with all these things, I think we can keep things in track, and so that the team is not overburdened.
Okay, wonderful. So I just want to add a
Yeah,
quickly a small point over here.
yeah,
So
sure.
I would say like we should have a conversation with the product owner. We have to
Hmm.
remind them that the sprint backlog should be set during the sprint planning and should
Exactly.
not be changed without the team agreement, right? So
Hmm.
adding work mid sprint basically disrupt the focus, and it
Hmm.
goes against the Scrum principles. So
Hmm.
I think we should protect the sprint commitment. So we'll emphasize it that once the sprint is begin, the team is committed to deliver the agreed upon work. So adding
Hmm.
tasks should be avoided unless it's absolutely necessary, and even
Right.
then only with the team consent. So if something urgent comes up, right, so the team need to discuss, and they should remove the lower priority task to make room
Hmm.
for the new work. So I think that's the additional point just want to add. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, wonderful. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Okay, so the next question is, let's say your team is not able to meet the sprint goal for
Hmm.
past couple of sprints. So what steps would you take to investigate, do the RC, and going to resolve this? Yeah, Anvita.
Yeah. So sprint goal is basically set for that particular sprint onto what exactly you're planning to deliver but at the end of that particular sprint. So let's say the team is continually not able to deliver the sprint goal. So in this case, first you need to retrospect about it and understand what is the root cause for these for this, right? It can be possible that first thing is, as you mentioned in the previous question, that during the sprint planning, let's say we have over committed onto the stories, right? We know that this is our velocity. Even though we constantly remind the team this is the velocity, we need to abide by that, let's not deviate much of it. They overcome it, they take extra items, and as a result you can see that there is spillover at the end of the sprint. And the second reason is that it can so happen that when you come to the sprint planning, you're still not clear about it, right? Partially you are aware of it, and in the backlog refinement you don't question your product owner, you don't ask them, you just listen to whatever input is given, and during the execution phase you'll realize, okay, this is the complexity associated. Then you'll go back to the product owner, then you'll seek for the clarification. This is a realistic example, I would say. This happens, and I feel this is more of realistic example. And the other case would be that you have dependencies, right? If you have let's say in our particular project, as I mentioned, we have hardware dependencies. So let's say one of the motor is not working, we go to the other vendor and we raise a request for them, like onto we need the fix for this. And they might not follow agile, they might be following some other approach to altogether to provide the fix and test it and give it back to us. So in this case what happens is there is a delay, right? We are not getting things on time, so because of which our user story has not reached the definition of done. So as a result you're seeing some delay, and you can see that it will be carry forwarded to the next iteration and so on, right? Until you get that particular fix, your user story is not completed. And for this you need to uh, properly follow up with the vendors, with the external team members. Maybe you can set up a meeting, as I mentioned in my previous answer, that you set up a meeting once in a week or bi-weekly with the external vendor or the counterpart who is responsible to take information from them, right? So that you inform them what is lagging in your particular sprint, and you're not able to achieve this, right? And it can so happen that mm, uh, another reason is that so I have covered on overburdening all these things. There could be a chance that scope change, ideally that is not expected, as you mentioned in the previous answer, but we are in agile world, so it can so happen that there is scope change in the middle of the iteration also. So in this case, let's say if the priority aspect comes into picture, in this case we can see some of the things which are not achieved within the particular iteration, and that leads to us not reaching that particular sprint goal. And whenever this we need to provide a proper metrics also, like we need to showcase the team onto on regular basis onto what is a burn down, like how much of the story points we have burned, and what is the progress what we have within the particular issue. We need to continuously remind the team onto this. Let's say everything is proper and still the team is taking a lazy step, right, onto not completing. In that case, you need to continuously remind the team, showcasing your burn down and showcasing what is your velocity and stuffs like that. So you need to keep track of the metrics as well. And yes, one more aspect is that we have in our particular team is that the developers, they give the build at the last moment. So it can happen that because of which the testing activity remains and it goes on to the next iteration altogether or next sprint altogether, right? Which leads to spillover again, or which because of which you will not be able to achieve the sprint goal. And for all these things, you need to have a proper DOD criteria also, so that everything is in place. And it's also important that during the sprint planning, you need to have a proper acceptance criteria. So because if the acceptance criteria is not clear, it can so happen that the team will misunderstand during the execution. They'll assume on certain things. It can so happen that team assumes on certain things, and then they will, at the last moment, they'll talk to the product owner and they'll say, this is what I thought of, and this is what I've developed. And then they go for the correction during the review. So this will also lead to a scenario wherein, the sprint goal will not be achieved. So I think with all this, I've covered most of the points, I feel. So with these are some of the scenarios what everyone can expect within the particular sprint.
Wonderful. Anvita, great. Again, a
Right.
small point.
Yeah.
Maybe we can also do a retrospective, though you mentioned about
Mm,
velocity, but yeah, I mean, if we can do a retrospective and, we
mm,
try to find the root cause,
yeah.
and if we can see any pattern, like why it's happening, is it
Mm,
any kind of pattern or it's like one of the event, or every time the reason is something else, right? So we
mm,
can do that, try to find some pattern, and try to find whatever we have planned versus actual, as you also mentioned the capacity
mhm.
thing, that either we are overcommitting, undercommitting something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think these are the few things which we can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you have covered most of the points. So great. Okay, so let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is on the conflict part. So let's say your uh, two developers on your team, they are having a conflict, and they are it is going to start the impact the team productivity. So how are you going to manage this kind of situation where one senior, junior, or no? There is always a kind of
Yeah.
these kind of issues with the team. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel this is one of the common scenario which is seen anywhere, right? Whenever the group of people are working together over the common agenda, you can see conflicts. So conflicts are welcomed, but it should be in a healthy way. If it is going in a unhealthy way, and if people are taking it personally and arguing over it, then it leads to a problem for the other team members. And most of the cases it so happen that ego clash also can happen when it comes to senior and junior, that because of which the conflicts leads to another level wherein they'll stop helping the junior, and they will stop responding to them, all these things. We can see all these things when we work as a team. So let's say I would consider one of the scenario wherein let's say there is conflict between the senior and the junior. Let's say with the behavioral aspect, right? As I mentioned, one of the example is that the person might shout in the daily scrum, right, on the other member, stating that, yeah, I have already explained you 100 times. You're still coming and asking me this question. All these things, like, it's a behavioral, basically behavioral conflicts, I would say. So, what would happen is that as a scrum master, we need to ensure that the entire team is not included in this, conflict resolution part. You just include those two team members. So first you should understand from individual perspective. Let's say a person A is having conflict on the person B, so you need to understand each one of them's perspective so that they feel that they're heard, right? The scrum master is hearing their point as well as the scrum master is hearing the other person's point as well. Then you need to come up with a common conclusion, common resolution for these things. Like for example, in our team, it so happened that, as I mentioned, he was very loud at answering the person, right? And then I made sure that everyone just leaves the forum or the daily scrum, and we just have two people, right? There also they were arguing, and I just told that, we need to be a little polite. And when I told this, he's a very senior employee, and he started telling that, my voice is only like this, like that. So, that's one of the answer which came up from him. So even though we know that their voice is not like that otherwise, we have to have that empathy in mind, and we need to, ensure that this won't happen, and we maintain that professional decorum in the when we are in a group discussion, right? And one level of I think one level of discussion has to be conducted with the scrum master, and if it exceeds beyond the limit, beyond your capacity, like, and it goes on to the argumental mode, and let's say uh, it's out of your hand, right? Let's say the person is still not agreeing to help any of the team members within the team, or if it becomes a heated argument, then it is also, you should, as a scrum master, we should also know when to escalate and when to get the management into picture. It's not always the team, right? We need to always consider when to, we should know the gap, like when to consider the management into picture, and when to consider, when to handle it ourselves. So I think in this way we can handle some of the conflicts. It can happen in any of the aspects, I would say. It could be behavioral, or it could be with the leadership team also. It could be with the technical aspects also. It could be the way of working also. So conflicts can be in any of the order, I would say. Yeah, this is my take on handling the conflicts
Okay, Anvita.
with the example.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, friends, in the past, we have done, I think, 1 hour session only on conflict management. So, if you have time, please browse the channel and you will find it. So, we have done a kind of workshop over there. Anyway, so let's move on, Anvita, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, your team is depend on a external team for that's a critical piece of functionality, and the external team delayed that for you. So, it's a tricky situation which no one wants to be. So how do you manage this kind of situation?
So this is a similar situation what we have in our organization, right? So let's say the team is depending on some external support for completing the work, right? In this case, what we need to do is that we need to formalize these dependencies in any of the project management tool. First of all, right, we need to keep track of all the dependencies. Like in safe we have program board, right, wherein we'll have add all the dependencies, and we will identify who would take up what part of work. And we need to also, as I mentioned in my previous answer, we need to also assign the owners for each of the dependencies. So here what happens is we know who would be the counterpart for these things, and when exactly we would get the result from them, right? So this is one more aspect. We need to have a tentative ETA. It can so happen that the team says that we don't know when we will complete. Sometimes you also get such a response like we don't know when we will give all these things. So you need to have some tentative ETAs for these things. Otherwise you will go on and on with the informations, and you will never get the resolution for that, and you will always see the conflicts that the other team is not providing you in time. And moreover, you need to involve those team members in your let's say review meetings, or let's say bi-weekly you need to have a engagement with those, or collaboration with that team members also. Like for example, we have scrum of scrums, right, wherein we would inform the other scrum master onto what dependencies we have from our team, right, for their what resolution we would need from their team. So this is also one of the possible thing. And we need to have these dependencies tracked in our we need to visualize these dependencies. It's let's say our user story A is depending on some dependency, external dependency. We can just create a task for that particular thing, and we need to assign the owner and assign the ETA, so that everyone, whoever are in the team, know that yes, this is dependent, this particular user story is dependent on this external, has some dependency, and we would take up this. Maybe you can reprioritize it later on. And one more thing is that whenever you come for the sprint planning, if you have some dependencies, you need to clarify it before you come for the sprint planning. It's not that during the execution phase, let's see, let's discuss and let's come up with a solution. That's sometimes it might work if that particular external dependent team is within your organization. If you let's say you'll depend on the external vendors, right, like how we have, in that case, first you need to work on those particular dependencies and then come up with the user story. For this, what you have to do, you have to just reprioritize the aspects, and you need to have a stakeholder engagement for this. It's not that okay, fine, I have a dependency, next iteration I'll take the user story. It's not self-deciding, I would say. You need to have a external stakeholder engagement as well. You need to have a collaboration, continuous collaboration, so that you focus these dependencies and you ensure that these are being monitored and these are being taken care of. And the team also needs to know all these things. So that's the reason you would visualize these particular dependencies, so that everyone are aware of. I think with these things we can help the team to come up with the solution for if we have dependencies.
Wonderful, Anvita. So if I have to just summarize whatever you mentioned, that
Yeah,
first of all, we have to assess the impact. So we have to understand
correct.
the dependency, first of all, that how this particular delay affect our project timelines, our deliverables, and our goals. And then we
Hmm.
have to evaluate that kind of risk. So we have to identify like any critical risk or any kind of bottleneck that will going to caused by this particular delay, and we have to assess the impact on our team's work, right? And then we
Correct.
have to reach out to that external team to understand the reason for the delay and their updated timelines. And then we have
Correct.
to also communicate them the urgency and the importance of our functionality to ensure that they are aware about that how critical is our deliverables are. And then at the same time, parallelly, we have to also provide we have that kind of update to our relevant stakeholders about that delay and its potential impact on the project. So yeah, that transparency is required. We have to
Correct.
work with the stakeholders to adjust our project timelines and based on that updated information from the external team. So we have to do those small alternation in our project plan. And of course, we have
Correct.
to collaborate continuously with those external teams. We have to offer support. Sometimes they stuck somewhere, so we can, offer our support to help them to address their issues. And we have to do a regular check-ins to monitor their progress. And yeah, things like that. We have to adjust our project plan. We have to reprioritize our work. And if possible, we should have kind of contingency plan, mitigation and contingency plan should be in place. So if the same thing will happen further, if there is more complication will happen, so how we are going to work on that. So yes, I think this is what we have mentioned. So that's great.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next question. Okay, so the next question is again about moreover on the same line, that if your team is overcommitting during the sprint planning, but then they fail to deliver. Sometime your team is like full of into and then they commit a lot of things. So but then it's not going to deliver. So what steps would you take to help the team to improve their estimation and their commitment? At the same time, you don't have to tell in a way that they should not feel that they are not going to do it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Anvita, it happened a lot of time.
Yeah, right. So this is also one of the realistic scenario which happens when we work as a Scrum Master. We see this scenarios. So one thing is first thing is we need to understand like why exactly the team is overcommitting onto these aspects, right? First of all, as a Scrum Master, what I have done is that every sprint planning, I ensure I showcase that this is the velocity we have, let's keep this in mind. At the same time, I will not pressurize the team to take only so much. That is not my agenda. So as a Scrum Master, I would show them, yeah, this is what we have achieved in the previous iteration, this is what we have committed to, and this is what we have completed. Now it's on the team, right? Now sometimes the team might take additional items during the sprint planning. So because of the over enthusiasm, and they would feel that like, I have worked in this particular team for 3 years, I know what the work is. And sometimes they are like, they are optimistic, at the same time they're overconfident about it, and they would take it, and finally it's the spillover. You see that they're not able to achieve it, right? So this can happen. So we need to keep in mind that constantly remind on the velocity, this is what we have achieved, let's not deviate much over it. Of course, if the team is pretty confident to take extra items, that is fine. As a Scrum Master, you should not stop it. But also you need to they need to have justification for those things. They need to know if it is really feasible to take it within the short duration of time, which could be like 2 weeks duration, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is that let's say the team is not clear, right? But during the sprint planning, as I mentioned in my previous answer, they're not clear. During the backlog refinement, they just listen to the product owner. Yes, this is all happening. I know I can do it. Later on in the iteration, during the execution phase, I'll do it. some people, not that everyone you see that, they're listening to the product owner actively, right? They're just listening. That's it. And then they'll say that, okay, fine, all the acceptance criterias are all in place, and but you're not clear about it. So here what happens is, you feel that yes, I can take additional items, but at the same time, when during the execution phase you realize the actual complexity of it, you will see the actual problems associated with that. That is another reason, I would say, that is, till you come to the sprint planning, you're not clear about the user story. That is second point. So in this case, it is very important for us as a scrum master to ensure that the user stories are being forecasted appropriately to the team member, and the team member is quite aware of what they are story pointing, right? uh, um, and also the acceptance criteria are detailed enough, right? They're simple, they are as per the invest metrics, and the team is quite aware of it. Then third point is, as I mentioned, there can be dependencies also. So because of which, at the beginning they'll feel that, let's say the external team member has told that, I'll give you the update in this particular iteration, and let's say they will have a delay, right? Which we cannot stop, because it's not in our hand, right? It could be because of the other vendor altogether. So in this case, what happens, again, during the execution phase, you realize that, okay, this is being delayed from the other team, so we will not get on time, and as a result you will see that, the team has committed and they're not able to achieve it. It's again not on the team though, but yeah, this is also a factor, right? So that is one more thing. And one more aspect is that estimation. The developers estimate as per their idea on to how much time they would need to develop the code, but the QA team will say as per them. Now if the estimation is not appropriate, right, uh, randomly they tend to give the story points, and if it is not appropriate, then in this case also you can see that the team tends to overestimate, or and then they are not able to achieve as per the sprint goal. And it can so happen that the development team knows how much time they would take, but eventually it goes on to the QA list, right? That time will not be achieved within the given time frame. So in this case also, it somewhere leads to the incompletion of the particular user story within the time frame, and as a result you can see that it looks as if it's like overestimated. And we as a scrum master, we need to always keep track of the burn down chart as well, so that you communicate to the team and you ensure that the team is in line with the agenda what is being planned during the sprint planning. And also, sometimes it so happen that the team takes POCs or spikes within the given iteration, right? And because of which we will have some of the stories or the user stories which might lead to a spillover. And this is also one more possibility, I would say. And let's say, yeah, these are some of the aspects. And maybe if there is no proper collaboration within the team, that also leads to overcommitment. Let's say, one person overcommits and the other person, without even communicating with the other person, and that might lead to a disagreement, I would say, or might lead to a overcommitment of that particular items within the iteration. So I think these are some of the aspects which I would put forth.
Okay, great, Anvita.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, friends, we are halfway through our session, and if you are still with us, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Okay. So, with this request, let's move on. So, the next question is that your team velocity is high, but the quality of the deliverables is poor,
Yeah.
and you have like lot of defects, which is keep on coming. So, how we are going to approach this situation, Anvita?
Yeah, I would like to explain this with an example. Let's say hypothetical example. When we were kids, it so happened, right? The teacher will give you some essay to write, and they'll give you a time frame, like within 10 minutes, 10 minutes, you have to write a essay on Independence Day. Okay. Now you know that Independence Day, you have to write an essay on Independence Day. You have the time limit. What you tend to do is we tend to scribble, right? We tend to write it very fast, and as a result, what will happen? We will finish within the timeline. That is, that we can compare it as a sprint, right? Or the iteration. We will finish, and we will finish the entire essay also, which we can consider it as a velocity, right here. But what happens to the end result? It may not be readable, right? You might foresee so many spelling mistakes within the essay, right? And it can also happen that some of the paragraphs might be missing. Now, what will happen to the end result is that it is not readable. So, which means that there's nothing, you're not getting any output out of that, right? So, this is a thin line, I would say, when we are trying to achieve the velocity in a rush, right? It can hinder the quality. So, this is an example what I've given, hypothetical example though. So let's compare the same thing with the what we have in software, right? So we have a time frame. Within that, we have to achieve certain velocity. Now when we go in a rush, and let's say we have some of the dependencies, we have some of the um, you know some of the uncertainties, even after that we try to achieve it, what happens? The code quality goes down. What could be possible, what are the action items for these things is that, first thing is you need to have a proper DoD criteria. So when you have a proper DoD criteria across every iteration, what happens is, you know what are the checklists that has to be followed, so as to ensure that to provide a particular increment to the customer, right? So once you fulfill all the checklists, it makes the product increment usable to the customer, right? So that is one thing. Second thing is that I would say that uh, your acceptance documentation should be clear. Why I'm mentioning this is so as to have the clarity that the team should not assume on aspects, and then they should not develop, and they should not say that this is what I've assumed, and the testing team also does some testing, and they'll not come up with a possible outcome for that, right? So this can also this is also one of the reason. And the third reason is that I would say that code quality is not being checked properly, that you're not doing a proper code review, and let's say the unit testing is not done appropriately. This is also one of the possibility. So in this case, as I mentioned in the first point, like you have the DoD criteria, right? It should cover all these points. So let me specify all the possible checklists, what possibly we can include in the DoD. That's my first point, right? And then we can it's also important to know how much of the testing is being done. Did we cover up all the regression scenarios within that particular iteration? And let's say the automation, is it done appropriately or not? Let's say I know that in every iterations for that particular features, you cannot consider all the automation scripts in place, right? You will always consider it in the next iteration, because you will not have so much of time limit to complete manual as well as automation. So in this case, what happens is at least 60% of the code coverage should be done. Automation scripts should be in place. So this also you should ensure, so that the code quality is not impacted. And one more thing is that you need to have proper standards, right? When we say that quality standards should be in place, when we say quality standards, it comes to these aspects itself, right? You need to have a proper metrics, you need to have a proper test coverage, you need to ensure that proper traceability metrics you have, so that everything is covered as per the requirements, and you have backtracking also. And you have certain defect density metrics associated with that, so that you know how many defects are being raised for each of the piece of code. And whenever you deliver a particular software, you should ensure that there are no critical as well as high bugs, right? So we need to ensure that these are being provided, these are being fixed before you deliver. And moving on to with all these things, I would say that you also need to have a realistic deadline. It's not that you provide a deadline unrealistically and the team is like rushing towards completion, right? In this case, the code quality definitely you can see multiple bugs coming in at the last moment. So we need to have that as well. And as I mentioned in all my answers, is that you need to have a collaboration with the customer, and we need to ensure that there is no much scope creep within the particular iteration, so that the team doesn't you know just finishes the work just for the sake of finishing it, and just keeping in velocity in mind and not on the code quality, right? So I think with all these aspects, that is I would like to summarize it again. With respect to documentation, you need to keep in place, you need to have a proper design documents which are reviewed and which are being approved, and you need to have a proper code review which is done, and you need to have a proper unit testing which is done. And it's good if you can document that as well. I know that keeping time limits, it's not possible to document everything. And you need to also have ensure that there are quality standards what is being maintained within the iteration. That is, you need to have proper test coverage, you need to have proper defect metrics, and you need to have a traceability metrics in place, so that you know what are the cases which are mapped appropriately to the requirements. And you need to take care of all the critical as well as high bugs which comes up in particular iterations, and before providing the software to the end customer. And also you need to have a realistic deadline to provide the particular software to the customer. And at the same time, you also need to have a collaboration within the team as well as with the stakeholder continuously, so that the stakeholder is also aware of what is happening within the team. So I think with these things we can manage velocity. At the same time, we can also help the team to come up with the best quality product.
Okay, Anvita, wonderful, great.
Yeah,
Again, small point,
yeah,
just a
sure.
small point that I think we should also focus on a technical debt. Maybe that
Yeah.
is one of the reasons. So we have to manage technical debt. We have to address technical debt. Maybe we have to do a refactoring and we have to
Hmm.
improve the code quality, as you mentioned, right? So the
Yeah.
idea is like allocate some time in your sprint to address the technical debt, and then yeah, I mean improve the overall code base. So I think that's maybe one of the reason also that we may have a defect which is not been even incurred
Right.
by us. Okay, so I think that's great.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Okay, so the next question is that your product owner is frequently unavailable, and that results in a poorly prioritized backlog. So yeah, I mean, how you're going to manage this kind of situation as a Scrum Master?
So this also could be one of the scenarios wherein the product owner is assigned with multiple projects. In this case, maybe the product owner is not allotted to only one project, right? So in this case, it can happen. But at the same time, as a Scrum Master, we need to have an open conversation with the product owner, not in an intent of pointing out that he or she is not available, but at the same time you need to understand from their perspective onto why this is happening, right? So once upon this, we can even schedule regular meetings whenever the product owner is available, so as to have a proper backlog refinements, and the team to have a proper collaboration with the team, and understand onto what exactly the team is facing. And there should be proper sessions conducted for backlog refinements, right? So with this, I think the team is also quite aware of what are the reprioritized items, or what are the prioritized item for that particular iteration. And also we need to inform the product owner as well what the team is facing issues because of the inavailability or of uh, the product owner, right? That should also be known to the product owner. And one more aspect is that I would say that stakeholder engagement also should be done, so that we know that who would be the secondary point of contact in case in urgent need. If that particular product owner is not available, then we would know we also need the backup to provide information to our team, so that the team is not delayed with this aspect, right? And if let's say a scenario wherein the product owner is not interested, I mean, in working, it can so happen, right, in IT. So if this happens, then we as a scrum master should know that thin line when we can handle as the situations and when we need to escalate, right? So in such situation, it's also important for us to escalate to the management and to ensure that we have some of the counterpart who would help the team and the team is not left behind. That is one more aspect. With this, I think I have covered up most of the aspects when the product owner is not available for the team.
Great, Anvita. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Okay, so Anvita, we have a couple of safe questions as well. So if you allow, shall we also cover?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the question is that in a PI planning event, one of the team is behind in their planning, which is telling the other teams. So how would you facilitate this situation to keep the this particular event on track? Yeah.
Okay. Before that, I would like to brief a little bit on what PI planning is all about, so that we can map the answers onto the situation based on that. So PI planning is basically a 2 days event wherein in a layman term, if I have to say that, wherein we'll plan for the it can be a kind of roadmap, or we plan for the entire PI. When I say PI, it's a 5 iterations we have, with 4 development iterations and one with the innovation and planning, right? It's totally a almost 10 to 12 weeks of duration what we have. So first of all, we need to know what are the what are the events we have within this particular PI planning. So first thing is, like, we would go about understand the business context, wherein the business owner would focus on the business context, and even some of the project related scope, as well as even the architectural scopes, vision, we would discuss. And then we would have a the RT would give a brief about what is the agenda for this particular PI, and then we would have a breakout session. So in this breakout session, what happens is that I think with all the answers what I've given in the previous questions, we can correlate to this particular scenario. So in this breakout session, we come up with a draft plan onto what we are planning for this particular these iterations. When I say these iterations, is for the entire 10 weeks or 12 weeks duration what we have planned, right? So we will set up the user stories what we have already groomed in the previous backlog refinement, and then we will allot it in each of the iterations as per the priorities. And then we will come up with a draft plan, and we will present that to the entire art level, entire set of teams who are participating in that particular art, right? And then we will have a managerial reviews, and on to the next day we will even come up with if there is any adjustments which is required with respect to the managerial reviews, and then we will do that with respect to the objectives, or with respect to the scope of the PI planning, we would do that. And then we would have a proper version of what we are planning for this particular PI, these iterations altogether, like 5 iterations, like wherein we will identify the risks, we will identify the dependencies with each of the teams within the art level, and then we will demonstrate these things. Then we will have a confidence voting, wherein 5 indicates that the team is pretty overconfident, or you can say pretty confident of what have been planned for the iteration. And if they say 1, which means that they are not at all confident, right? So in this case, we will again reassess on to those things, on to why exactly the team is facing that, and then we would reconsider the confidence voting, and finally we go on to the retrospective. So this is basic overview of 2 days event. Now here, for to answer this particular question, we would come to the breakout session, right? What happens is it can so happen that the team is quite not aware of what is the event all about, right? What is the scope of the event? Everything is time boxed here. Even the breakout session is like 2 hours. We keep for breakout sessions generally. So even in this particular breakout session, we are not clear about the scope of this PI. We don't know what to do about it. That can be one reason. In this case, it is important for the management or the product management, or I would say it is important for the RT to focus to the team onto what are the events that are present in particular PI, so that every whole team member is aware of what exactly is going to happen in this PI planning event, right? So in that case, there is no wastage of time, I would say, in that breakout session. So that the team is quite aware of what they have to do. Second aspect is that there is no backlog refinement which is done before coming to the PI planning. That is, the team is quite not aware of what user story they are working upon. And let's say if they are in the gray area, like if they don't know what they're working upon, right? The user stories are formulated by the product owner, and then in the breakout session, we come and discuss. What are the uncertainties associated with that? What are the dependencies we have? This can so happen, because of which it adds delay, right? The team will not that particular aspect. That is one more aspect. So it is very important that the proper backlog refinement has to be done before coming to the PI planning. So this is one more aspect. And the third aspect would be like the team is not having trust with each other, right? In such cases, it can so happen that there will be argument within the breakout session also. You see that the team is disagreeing on certain things, and they're not ready to take up onto these aspects within the iterations, whatever you have planned. So that can happen. That can add delay. And the fourth aspect is that we have dependencies, but we are quite not aware of when would be what is the problem statement, when we would get the resolution onto that. So we have some of the uncertainties. So in this case also, it can add delay, wherein it leads to a lot of discussions within the breakout session, and then finally you will not come up with any solution, right? And you will have a delay. And I would say that there is no proper collaboration also within the team. This can also lead to each of the team members taking up their own user stories and coming up with the solutions for that. So it adds up a delay, I would say, wherein they don't know where to place what, right? This is a realistic situation which happens in PI planning. I wouldn't I wouldn't deny that. And yeah, these are some of the aspects which I feel that, which adds up a delay with one or two team members to cope up with the other teams within the particular iteration, within the particular PI planning.
Okay, wonderful, Anvita, for this
Yeah.
elaborated answer.
Yeah.
So, Anvita, I think we are good for today because it's almost,
Okay.
I guess, 1 hour for this 52,
Yeah.
160 minutes. I think we have covered. And yeah, I mean, so let's do one more follow-up session after this.
Yeah.
So with this, thank you, Anvita, and thank you, friends, for joining us for today's session. And we hope you found it helpful and informative. And if you enjoyed this session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And we hope to see you in our next session. Until take care. This is Sunil Sharma signing off. Bye. And thank you, Anvita, one more time.
Thank you, Sunand, for giving me this opportunity once again. Yeah.
Thank you.